Hello everyone, so it's Friday, so it's time for another Friday reads. I have read some chunky books this week, so let's just get into the ones I've read. The first one is Black and British by David Olusoga, and this is basically a history of black people, mainly in the UK, but also it talks a lot about slavery in the US and the Caribbean, and other countries in Europe as well. But it focuses in Britain, especially towards the second half or so. So in the first part, it starts around the 1500s when Henry VIII was king in Britain, and how they started to have black people already, and at the beginning they were treated as equals, more or less. Like if a black person will say in court, this is what happened, he will just be believed, and how that degraded and slavery came into play, and now we are where we are. This was very interesting. I think that the only thing I would say, I was expecting this to go farther back in history, because I'm pretty sure that there has been black people in Europe for forever. Africa and Europe are not that far, so I'm sure black people did cross that several times before, and I know that there were black people in Spain, for example, when it was a Muslim country, which is around Middle Ages. So I was expecting it to go a bit farther down. Still, what cover was very interesting and I quite enjoyed it. I have to say as well that this is quite dense, so it might take you a while to read it, but it's worth pursuing it. The next book I read is The Vanishing Half by Brit Bennett, and this is about two sisters that they're black but light skinned, so one of them decides to pass as white and one decides to live as a black person, and what are the consequences in their lives throughout that decision. This has been widely praised in BookTube, but some people that I really trust did not like this as much, so I was a bit hesitant and I didn't know if I was gonna like it, and unfortunately I felt a bit meh about it. So I felt like in the beginning, first of all, the writing at the beginning was a bit clunky. I think there's very long sentences for no apparent reason that I particularly don't enjoy, and then also the story was trying to build from when the sisters were little, but it did not work for me. I don't think it was very well done. I couldn't connect with them. It was jumping all over the place all the time, very fast, and it never spent enough time with characters to actually get to know them and their reasons for the things they did. And then in the second part, it gets better because it actually does focus a little bit more into the daughters of the two sisters. So one of them is living as a white person because she thinks that her mom is white, and the other one is living as a black person because her mom married a very dark-skinned man, so she is very dark-skinned. And they both discover that they exist, which they were not sure about, and what has happened with their mothers and the relationship of their mothers and the things that they have given up to live the life they live, which sounds interesting, but at the end I don't think this went deep enough. I thought that the exploration of colorism was good, but I personally have troubles understanding white passing, because for me it's a lot of labeling basically, and has to do more with labeling than with identity, which I have problems with, but maybe I'm wrong, and I was trying to understand with this book if I'm getting that wrong, and if there was more nuisance to the concept, and I couldn't get any more information about the concept of white passing from this book, other than the very standard superficial description that I found in other places. Yeah, so I was a bit disappointed by this, but I'm very interested on knowing what my book club thinks about it. We're having the discussion on Sunday, and hopefully I will be able to attend. I have some things to do on Sunday, but hopefully I will be able to join that discussion because I'm interested to know what other people think. Then the next book I finished is an audiobook, and that's Mr. Loverman by Bernadine Evaristo. And unfortunately, this was another underwhelming book for me. So Mr. Loverman follows Barry, who is an older man, black man from Antigua that lives in London, and he has had this long love affair with his friend Morris, and he also has a long life disagreements and strained relationship with his wife Carmel. And this follows the time when Barry finally decides that he wants to tell his wife that he wants a divorce and go live with Morris for the rest of his life and be happy with him, and what family drama that causes, what issues they run into, and we explore those relationships in more detail, and that sounds very interesting. And I loved all the commentaries and the nuisance of the story, because there's a lot of that, but I just think that Bernadine Evaristo likes to write about very dislikable people that I can personally not relate with at all. And Barry is a very self-centered, misogynistic in many points, and I just don't want to read about that. So for me, I totally get why people love this book. I just cannot deal with these really unlikable characters that Bernadine Evaristo likes to make. It happened similar to me with Girl, Woman, Other. I really like the concept, I really like the story, I really like the topics that it explores, but the characters are so unlikable in a way that are impossible to relate for me. Because I don't particularly like to read about unlikable characters, but I can read about them if you make them relatable. If I feel like I can understand the reasoning for making all those horrible choices. I don't feel like Bernadine Evaristo does that. It just makes unlikable characters for the sake of unlikable characters, and I didn't enjoy the reading experience of that. Then the last book that I finished is An Orchestra of Minorities by Chigozie Obioma, and unfortunately this was a little bit of a disappointment as well. It started really good, but then it fizzled out. So this is about a poultry farmer in Nigeria that meets this woman in strange circumstances, and he basically saves her life, and based on that they fall in love, they want to get married, and then he decides that he wants to go abroad to study so that he's good enough for her, and that causes a lot of issues, because he's a farmer in Nigeria that does not have a wide understanding of how things in Europe work. So that causes a lot of issues. And at the beginning I was really liking this because I felt like the way that it was written, it was very reminiscent of the oral tradition of African literature, and it also has a lot of Igbo cosmology and Igbo culture and the spirits of Igbo culture, and it even has some graphs of the Igbo cosmology, so that was really cool and I was really into it. But to be honest, when the main character decides to go to Cyprus to study, I felt like the story just derailed completely and it was going in all directions, and I had no idea why the author will choose to do the things he chose to do. So yeah, this was a bit of a disappointment, especially because it started so good and then it just went into all different places that I didn't think worked. But yeah, I finished it at least. And then I am in the middle of 3 books. So the first one is Viaja Portugal by José Saramago, and this is part of my non-fiction November TBR. Page 343. So it's over halfway through. So this one is divided into sections of the regions of Portugal, and José Saramago goes to these regions and explores especially the rural areas, and it talks a lot about the smaller villages and the villagers that live there, and also it talks about the nature in the different parts. I'm liking it so far. I have to say that many of the places I do not know, so I had to Google a lot, and I think this would work better if I was, I don't know, traveling through Portugal, or I was Portuguese and I knew all these places. But other than that, I'm really liking it. I really like how José Saramago writes. It's very lyrical and very evocative, even though I don't know the places and the names. There are a lot of names of places and churches and all that. But yeah, other than that, I'm liking this one, and I'm expecting to finish this weekend, hopefully. The other one I'm reading in physical form is Interior Chinatown by Charles Yu. This won the National Book Award, and Rainier and I are buddy reading this and are planning to do an in-depth conversation of this book soon. So look out for that. I think we are also going to finish this weekend. I'm 70 pages from the end or so it should not be difficult to finish this on time. And I'm really liking this one. I'm really liking this one. It's very funny. It's written as a script, and it's about this boy person that wants to be a famous actor, but because he's Asian, the only parts that he can get are generic Asian man that dies in the first scene, or owner of a restaurant, an Asian restaurant, or like the goal career for Asian actors is to be the kung fu guy. So yeah, he talks a lot about those stereotypes and how harmful stereotypes can be, and how they're harmful for all minorities in very different ways. So it's in the surface it looks like a very funny, quick to read book, but it has a lot of deep social commentary on how we approach race as well. So I'm really liking that one. And the last one that I'm reading is Hollowpox by Jessica Townsend, and I picked this up because I had a few disappointments in a row, and I wanted something that was a bit more fun and light and easy to read. I'm only a couple of chapters in, but I'm enjoying it so far. I have to say that for some reason this feels to me a lot more middle grade than the other previous 2 books in the series. I don't know why, but it does feel more middle grade. Maybe it's because I haven't read those books in a while, so I'm having to remind myself of all the characters in the story. But yeah, I'm enjoying it so far. I'm looking forward to keep reading. So in terms of which things I want to read when I finish what I'm currently reading, I have Africa's Tarnished Name by Chinua Achebe, which is in my hibernation TBR and also in my non-fiction TBR. It will be the last one in my non-fiction TBR. So I want to read this maybe this weekend. It's very short, so I should be able to do that. Then there are other 2 books that were in my original hibernation TBR, but I unfortunately don't think I'm going to get to both of them, or at least finish both of them. before the end of the weekend, but I still want to read them. The first one is The Most Fun We Ever Had by Claire Lombardo, and this is about 4 sisters and the shenanigans that go on with them. I don't know too much about it, but it was nominated for some prizes, and it sounds like a fun, lighter read in my opinion, so I'm looking forward to that one. And then the other one that I want to read, well, it was in my original hibernation TBR, was Inland by Tea Obreth, and as far as I know this is a bit of like a western feeling but with very mythical and magical tones to it as well. I have never read Tea Obreth before, but I have heard very good things about her, so I'm hoping that I will like this. And then the last one that I have is something that you have seen a lot of these Friday reads saying, I'm gonna read this next week, and I haven't yet. And that is The Girl with the Loud Invoice by Abi Dare. I just seem to not manage to fit it within my reading, but I'm going to make an extra effort to read this next week. And this is about a girl in Nigeria that is married as a third wife, and how she's supposed to be silent but she's not. So yeah, I have heard great things about this. I need to read it. I don't know why I'm not doing that. But yeah, those are the plans for the coming week, but also because we are at the end of the month, it's time for my reread project, TBR. And yeah, so the previous reread that I picked up from this was Las Venas Abiertas de América Latina by Eduardo Galeano, which I haven't read yet, but that's because I have ordered the book and it has not come yet. I did used to own this book, and then I lent it to a friend and it never came back, so I have bought it again, and because it's in Spanish, it's coming from far and it hasn't arrived yet, so I will read it whenever it comes. But in the meantime, I thought I will pick up something for December. Hopefully something short. I will appreciate that. Perfect. That's Flight to Canada by Ismail Reed. Let me go get it. So the one I picked up as a reread is Flight to Canada by Ismail Reed, and this is a very short book, and it's about, I remember it being very funny and nonsensical in some way, a little bit like Kurt Vonnegut, and it was about slavery. So it's set in the 1850s, around the Civil War in the US, and when the slaves were freed, or they were fighting to free the slaves, and but it is set with technology, modern technology. I think this was written in the 70s. Yeah, 1976. So it's with the technology of 1976. So they have phones, they have healthcare, they have planes, but they also have slavery. And it just shows how ridiculous the idea is of having slavery in such a society. And I really loved it, and I'm really looking forward to read it again. So yeah, that will be my reread for December, which it's great because I have a lot of books that I want to read before the year is over, and this one is just a tiny one that I can fit in. So yeah, that was the video for today. Let me know if you have read any of these books or you are interested in any of these books, and let me know also what you have read this week, and until next video, bye.